I made a video on the Omegaverse, so this had to happen eventually. I also made one on Bara, so this doubly had to happen. Today I'm teaching you all about probably the most world-famous genre of art, hentai, stories, and fanfiction. Protect your cheeks, because I'm coming at you with the paddle, Yaoi. What is Yaoi? Yaoi is a genre of media, primarily Japanese media, about male-male couples. The primary distinction between this and standard gay media, as discussed in the Bara video, is that Yaoi is written primarily by female authors and the mangaka to appeal to primarily female demographics. This female demographic is referred to as fujoshi, a derogatory term meaning spoiled woman or rotten girl. The male version of fujoshi are called fudanshi, which means the same, but, you know, boy. If you ask a fujoshi whether they're into male-male media, they most often say no, outside of yaoi. I can't speak for fudanshi as I've never actually met a fudanshi. Fujoshi are usually only interested in these yaoi depictions. There are no shortage of factors as to why this may be. Maybe because this genre caters so heavily to them that nothing else really hits the same. It might also be why some prefer hentai to real sex or furry art to real sex. Sometimes the artistic depictions are better than real life. Real life is gross. There's too much meat, too much sweat, weird sounds, and porn has this artificial perfection to it. But that's just a theory. Anyway, terms like fujoshi and fudanshi have parallels for yuri, which I'll probably end up making a video on too. I definitely did. I already wrote it. I wrote like 3 scripts today. I know I don't have to make these, but I know someone will ask eventually, so it's better to just get them out of the way now. And besides, you know, keeps me booked for a few months. What does it mean to make gay porn that is made to appeal to women? From my experience, it means that these gay relationships are often from the perception of heteronormative mindsets. It's the presence of the male-female style relationships that even in the case that both participants are male, one plays the role of the masculine male, and one plays the feminine female-like male. These types are also called seme, uke, and riba. Seme is the dominant masculine male type that are often still portrayed as pretty boys, which is a distinct contrast from the masculine norma in Bara. You can easily spot the seme in the wild. They're tall, lanky, usually dark hair, angular faces, and have massive hands. The uke, on the other hand, is the submissive, feminine, cutesy, and soft boy that the seme is often attracted to and trying to romance. This follows a sort of predator-prey relationship of the seme being the pursuer and the uke being the pursued. Riba is a character that doesn't fit into any of the previous 2 archetypes. They're the switch, I suppose. Now, it might be easy for you to spot what makes this art form so appealing. It's built around the misconception straight people often have about gay relationships and leans far into it. Also, the boys are very pretty, and it uses similar art styles to what's already present in shoujo. Shoujo means girl manga. So it uses familiar themes, familiar desires, and simplifies gay relationships in a very pandering and digestible way. I used to read yaoi too, again, 12 to 15 years ago, and it was harder to find furry media than it was to find gay media. I'm a furry, and with how big femboys are as part of the culture, I'm going to have to address this. With the uke, you may already be seeing parallels with what we call femboys. Before we get on with femboys, I just wanted to talk about this art piece because it's really funny. This is art of my friend Tormi's character, Tormi, and it's probably the most stolen piece of furry art there is because pretty much every femboy out there has taken it and used it at some point. This character is like so synonymous with the word femboy that you can search femboy furries and it is always in the top 5 results on Google Images. So I just wanted to share that. So like if you see other people using it, they're most definitely using it without Tormi's permission, whereas like I'm probably one of the few people who have actually used it with his permission. So I just thought it was a little funny. These are 2 distinct concepts. Uke are innocent and often naive, and follow the lead, while femboys are very lewd and sexual. It's much closer to an identity than a personality type. Femboys lack innocence entirely and are basically the furthest extreme of male femininity, and often they can be the pursuer. Also, femboys are often portrayed as a specific thing that appeals on their own. A femboy can exist in a pocket and be interesting, while the appeal of the uke requires the presence of the seme as the contrast to be appealing. After all, a king is nothing without his queen. Although the concepts are familiar, femboys often are written and portrayed as just being tools to be used by more dominant figures, and their exotic nature are more of a side effect of straight society shaming feminine behavior in men. Femboys in media are a stand-in for the feminine role in a relationship like the uke, and are appealing for the same reason. It's easy to understand, and male-female style relationships are something I'm already familiar with. That isn't an insult, it's actually the opposite. I'm praising that male-male relationships in the medium show that and commend men for being feminine. It's a step in the right direction, normalizing men being themselves regardless whether they act stereotypically masculine or not. Other ways this genre caters to female readers is the focus on foreplay. Not, you know, sex foreplay, but like, there is that. But like the stuff that happens like way before sex, no, that's still the same thing. The relationship building part. There's a lot of dialogue and story that happens long before anyone pokes the other. Often these men are younger, so they're experimenting and learning about same-sex love for the first time. They spend time coming to terms with what they're feeling and the complexity of those feelings, and usually one spends too much time with the girl, the other one gets upset and acts out, the semi is like, "Baka, I like boys, you absolute dumb shit," and then kisses the uke, making fun of him for getting jealous in the first place over something that would never happen. And then, if it's the climax part of the manga, they slam jam and take his pussy to the downtown jamboree, the Danger Zone Bone Zone. Can you tell that I've read a few? Surprisingly, many of these I got from my public library, but mostly I had to read them on the internet from forums. This video ran a bit shorter than I expected because Yaoi has a lot of overlap with other forms of media, so I've covered aspects of it by covering other things. But I hope you enjoyed yet another educational video. If you're looking for recommendations, I decided to read Dick Fight Island as a form of research, and now I unironically love it. It's a manga that reads like shonen or martial arts manga like Baki and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but it's even more absurd because the combat is all about making your opponent nut first, and these dudes are butt naked except for dick armor. The main character's super secret technique is a prostate massage. However, the censoring is barely there, and it's pretty graphically sexual. Manga with lots of dong flopping around and sex about every page. But if you can ignore that, it's a very funny manga that is more absurd and over the top than Baki, and everyone in the manga treats it like it's a perfectly normal thing to be doing. However, I wouldn't call it yaoi, but I wouldn't call it bara either. Every character is their own character and their own personality, and they're not boxed into these archetypes. There's actually these two characters in Dick Fight Island, where one is like, he's tall, scrawny, kind of like a seme, and he has blonde hair, it's all in braids, he wears his, like a silky dancer's outfit, while the other guy is like clearly the big buff daddy type, and they both have their like dominant personalities, but they still end up, you know, like hooking up. So it breaks those norms, and that's what makes Dick Fight Island kind of interesting, is that it has the opportunity to break away from these norms by being in a fantasy setting, and it takes that opportunity every chance it gets. So it's a recommended read, but there is a lot of sex in it. But I would call it more bara because the way the sex scenes are depicted, the focus on the combat and the romance is kept realistic and light. I think it would appeal more to actual gay men than fujoshi. Anyway, I have to go beat a man into submission. I'll see you all later. Have a good night, and stay batty.